we are going to be starting a poetry unit, and when we're looking at poems, we're going to be analyzing their structure, looking for themes, looking for patterns. We'll be looking at the stanzas and see how they split apart the stanzas. And then with all this analysis, we'll be using our model poems to help us create our own poem. So I'm going to read through a model poem, and then I'm going to kind of go through what sort of elements it has that your poem needs to have. And then I'll do a couple examples of stanzas that you could have. So this first poem is called Can You Imagine? Rafts that don't floats, castles without moats, a ladder without a rung, Michael Jordan without a tongue, soda without bubbles, Bart Simpson without troubles, elephants without trunks, summer camps without bunks, birds without feathers, days without weather, a clock without time, a poem that does not rhyme. So the first thing that I notice here is that the stanzas are in 2 lines each. So there's 2 lines that go together, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stanzas. So 6 pairs of lines. That's 12 total lines. And this one was by Libby Shapira. And the second thing I noticed is that the end of each stanza rhymes. Floats and moats, rung and tongue, bubbles and troubles, trunks and bunks, feathers and weather. This one is a little bit of a stretch. Feather and weather rhymes, but they wanted to put feathers because there's multiple birds. And birds have more than one feather. Time and rhyme. One of the things I noticed about time and rhyme is those rhyme, but they have different endings. YME versus IME. And that's totally fine. They don't have to be spelled that similar. They just need to rhyme. So the other thing that I notice that kind of goes with the poem's sort of theme and the poem's meaning is this title, Can You Imagine? And every line is a different thing that seems impossible or seems like it shouldn't be. Rafts that don't float, well, what would be the point of a raft if it didn't float? Or castles without moats, most castles do have moats. So when you're creating your own 6 stanzas, 6 pairs, I want you to start by thinking of something that you think is kind of silly, something that you think shouldn't be or couldn't happen. And then we'll think of a rhyme to go with the ending word, and then think of something that might go with the rhyme. So I'll start with cars without wheels. I just thought of something in real life that I couldn't imagine having a car and not having wheels on it. How would the car move? Then I take this word wheels, and I can think of other things that rhyme. I can think of heels, meals, peels, any word that rhymes with that. And then I think about those words. Can I think of anything impossible to go with one of those words? And I like the word peels. I'm going to say bananas without peels. And so I've just made my first stanza. I would type those 2 in at the end. I push the enter button. Notice in this poem there's no punctuation until the very end. Next to rhyme there's a period. So it's kind of treating it like it's one giant sentence. So you don't need punctuation on every line. They're not really full sentences. They're just kind of thoughts. So cars without wheels, bananas without peels. After wheels, I would push the enter button right here. And then after peels, I would push the enter button twice. So I have a space before I try my next stanza. So I think of another thing that might be impossible. So zebras with no stripes. Oops. Got ahead of myself. ST. And then I think of stripes. And if I'm having trouble rhyming, I often think about things by ABC order. So I'd say apes, kind of stripes, A-ripes, bripes, kipes, mipes. One that I can think of as I go through is pipes. And it looks like they don't need us to, sometimes they have without in both of the lines, and sometimes they have it not. So I don't have to have with no. I could go without. I could say whatever I think. Oh, I don't know why there's a L in my pipes. P-I-P-E-S. Pipes. So whatever I think rhymes with, or goes with pipes, what would be impossible for it to not have pipes? Maybe an organ. They have those big, beautiful pipes in the background. An organ without pipes. So really, I don't care as long as they're appropriate. I don't really care what the stanzas are about. I had people do one about celebrities last time. I mean, even our example one has Bart Simpson in it. They're probably a fan of The Simpsons. And I had some people doing it about some of their lines about video games or basketball players or things they like at their house. I wouldn't say it would be particularly easy to make every single line about video games because you have to think about these rhymes. But if you want to do some of them with things that you like, that's perfectly fine with me. So you're trying to make 6 pairs of stanzas, and you can use this same title of Can You Imagine? That is totally fine. And then 6 pairs of rhyming ideas of things that seem kind of impossible, kind of silly. And so these silly ideas can kind of all come together and make a theme about creating wonder, celebrating the unknown, questioning things around you, and kind of combined to show a little bit of your personality along with some of your rhyming and structural skills. And lastly, if you ever find yourself getting stuck on a rhyme, so for example, I have this great idea that I want to include my favorite video game, like Terraria, and I say Terraria without digging, and I'm having trouble rhyming something with digging. See if you can think of another thing that would be impossible with your video game or with your chosen topic. See if there is a way to include it, or maybe you might just have to skip that and you might have to think about a different one. Just because you thought of a cool idea doesn't mean you're stuck with it if you can't find a rhyme for it. So be creative and let me know if you have any questions.